Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, the Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the first event in our winter seminar series created by the PDMI's Workshop Council titled The State of Media. We'll welcome all of you to today's event, PDMI members and non-members alike. Speaking of membership, if you're not a PDMI member but are attending today, we'd love to have you consider joining. During the past 10 months, where we've lost 3 multi-day in-person conventions, there's no better way to support the mission of the PDMI than joining and sharing your voice in the direction of the industry. In the handouts tab of your control panel, you'll find our PDMI membership brochure. I urge you to download it, flip through it, and contact any of our team members should you desire more information. Before we get to today's conversation, another quick housekeeping note. The group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session. You don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the webinar. Today, the PDMI's Workshop Council welcomes these 3 leaders from media outlets serving the performance-driven marketing industry. All 3 of these leaders represent PDMI member companies. Let's meet them. Christine Georgakakis is the Vice President of Direct Brand Marketing and Advertising at REELZ Network. She's a direct marketing professional with extensive experience in the media business and was named one of the top women in media by Synopsis as an industry leader in 2020. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Brian Norris is Senior Vice President, Direct to Scale at NBC Universal and leads the Direct to Scale and Direct Response sales team. Norris brings almost 20 years of management and leadership experience driving television revenue in linear, addressable, and digital media. Before joining NBC Universal, he served as Vice President of Dish Media Sales. Norris joined Dish in 2008 to assist in the establishment of its flagship office in New York. He's also held sales roles at Viacom and Lifetime Entertainment Services. Norris volunteers with Big Brothers Big Sisters of NYC and currently serves on the board of the nonprofit International Radio and Television Society, as well as the IE Business School Alumni Association. And he also serves as an undergraduate volunteer and reviewer for Brown University's Alumni Association. Brian, welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
And last but not least, Mark Sullivan has been with ViacomCBS for 15 years. He is responsible for co-managing a convergent sales team of 11 sales executives across 19 networks and digital platforms. Top networks and digital platforms include Nickelodeon, MTV, Paramount, and Comedy Central. Sullivan has helped lead the team in the digital video side of the direct response business and has delivered significant growth during the past couple of years. He lives in Hoboken, New Jersey with his wife and 3 sons. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Let's get started. Brian, I'm going to start with you on this first question. Before we start to look at the current state of the media marketplace and ahead at the rest of 2021, I have to ask each of you briefly to look back on a personal and professional level. What do you consider the biggest moment during the past year in living through the coronavirus crisis?
Thanks, Tom. First off, personally, like everybody else who's on this call, we had to adapt very quickly to the changing environments from a work perspective. As you see, I'm here broadcasting from my basement, and we had to move very quickly to pivot just the way we worked, just in our own personal spaces. Fortunately for me and my family, we have the space to actually homeschool and for me to work from home. So I'm very grateful for that. But I think most importantly, like just remaining healthy. You know, my family has been healthy, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So from a personal perspective, there's no bigger news from my perspective. Now thinking about what we do at NBC Universal and how we've been able to pivot during this global pandemic. Well, first off, you know, looking back at this past year, NBCU was like almost all other companies. Like we had to rethink how we approach the marketplace from a strategic standpoint. And so luckily we were well on our way to helping to shift and change thinking in the marketplace even before the pandemic hit us. So in early 2020, we introduced our one platform business strategy, which basically allows for brands to target audiences wherever they reside across the NBC Universal platform. So we were well on our way. So when things started to unfold with the pandemic and COVID, we were in an excellent position to help brands approach the marketplace from a very thoughtful perspective. And then when we think about direct to scale, how we work with direct-to-consumer brands, it was no different. We actually created this this framework in which to approach the marketplace and segment brands into 3 different areas. One was maintain, so for brands that were doing well, but we wanted to make sure that we can help them maintain the success that they were experiencing. Secure, we all know that there are plenty of brands in the marketplace that experienced a huge bump in business during pandemic. So we figured out ways in which that we can, for us to help these brands actually continue the momentum that they were experiencing. And then finally, the third bucket is thrive, right? There are some brands, you think of, like a Peloton or an Instacart or a Grubhub, those brands were absolutely in this environment. And so we wanted to make sure that we were coming to them with business strategies that can help them grow and continue that momentum during pandemic times. So the way that we looked at it through the framework of maintain, secure, thrive, which really, how can us as NBC Universal be aligned with their business strategies, their KPIs to help them grow their business? And we got the entire organization bought in on change and really this concept about breaking legacy thinking, right? So we've introduced opportunities and made them available to direct-to-consumer brands, opportunities including an ability to transact from an e-commerce standpoint with our shoppable TV product and our NBC Universal checkout product, all the way through allowing these brands to target audiences at scale across our digital and streaming platforms. So we've made all of these opportunities available to direct-to-consumer brands. And that really speaks to the core foundation of direct-to-scale, is being able to provide an environment for brands to access premium video, right? And not necessarily having to go through the direct response door and purchase remnant inventory, right? These brands spend so much of their time building a strategy to win against their KPIs. And then for them to actually be pushed into a door to buy remnant sometimes goes against a very strategic mindset. And then they're having to readjust and re-strategize based on the inventory that's available. We certainly have a strong business as far as that's concerned, but we think that we can do more with brands by unlocking legacy rules that may have held us back. So coronavirus and this time actually gave us permission to make these changes in real time.
That's great. Great stuff, Brian. Christine, I'm going to swing over to you and ask you the same question. Professionally and personally, the biggest moment during the past year in living through all of this.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment and just to say out to all the participants, if anyone has lost a dear one, our condolences go out to you. It's a very difficult year. And as I look back to last year and seeing how we made it through all the ups and downs, I mean, the waves of the virus, the spiking of the virus, the trying to get established to work from home, achieving that, and working with our teammates and working with our clients to ensure that everything flowed just as smoothly as when we were in the office. We were able to achieve that. And just the struggle of trying to take care of our kids and our families and just making sure everyone was safe. All those ups and downs, I will say that the defining moment for me for this past year was really collective perseverance. We all made it through together. We were all supportive of each other. And I think it was a great success in the fact that we were there to help each other through it.
That's great. Thank you, Christine. Mark, what about you? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, concur with a lot of the thoughts, many of the thoughts that Christine and Brian had, but from a personal level, I remember I was telling the story last week to I forget to who, to one of our agency partners, but I remember going home on actually, Tom, I think it was you, might have been on this call as we were prepping for this, but I went home on Friday the 13th, March 13th, and I forgot my laptop. because honestly, I thought we'd be home for a couple of weeks and be back. I was a silver lining type of guy. But the next morning on Saturday, I live in Hoboken, so it's only pretty quick into the city. So my wife and I got in the car and I went in and picked up my laptop, and that was very strange. It's very strange to be the last time I was in the office was by myself on a Saturday morning, just grabbing my laptop, and I have yet to go back and see that. And again, I'm pretty close to the office. So I think, on a personal level, I have three boys, and my wife and I have definitely grown a lot closer, a little too close, being here and being able to help with homework and whatnot. And certainly in March, April, and May, when you're really, there was just, I went out to get maybe, we'd go out to get a cup of coffee and there wouldn't even be anybody on the street. So it's definitely like, then the summer things opened up a little more, but on a personal level, just, getting through like everybody else, and managing, and then, professionally work was blowing up, right? In March, April, there were a lot of cancels and a lot of shifts in the marketplace, and just, the sales teams at all the, everywhere across the board, digital sales, linear sales, and then the media partners on the agency side, just everybody getting through it, and stepping up on both sides, and I just remember going from just trying to get from one day to the next day, and kind of just taking it one day at a time. So I'm very proud of our team, and I really think all the sales teams, and again, our media partners have just to get through this. And clearly we're not, it's not over, but we're seemingly on the other side of, I would say, from a business perspective. And just for instance, COVID is still raging across the country, but there have been no cancels. Then we'll probably get into this throughout the call here, but almost little to no options on the national side, and really people are sticking with it.
Yep.
Across the board. So
great. Thanks, Mark. Moving on to the next question, the two biggest opportunities COVID upheaval presented to your business, and then on the flip, what two opportunities were you able to present to your clients and advertisers as well? Brian, I think you touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to go to Christine first here and lead off on this question.
Yeah. I would say as an organization, we became extremely agile, right? We had to react to what was going on in the marketplace. So we immediately set up work from home, set up our teams. We made sure to reach out to our clients and let them know that we're here to work with them seamlessly, just as we were working with them right before the whole event happened, right? We wanted to make sure that they knew that we were just as accessible. And upon that, turning to our advertisers, a lot of our advertisers had to pivot their business to digital. So we provided a platform for them to really get their messaging out to the masses. So that was one thing that we were able to do. The other thing was that we had advertisers who wanted to enter the marketplace, and it was a perfect opportunity for them to really take advantage of some of the opportunities that were out there due to the fallout of some of the traditional advertisers. And it gave them a platform to really test and learn, which is what they wanted to do. And I really think it proved very successful for them. They really saw the power of television. They were with us then, and they're with us today. So that's very telling on what TV can do for them. And on another note, it was a time where production was down. It was a time where sports wasn't on. And REELZ really provided original programming throughout. We had that in the bank, which was wonderful. And we were able to offer that to our clients and to our viewers. So
that's great. Mark, I'm going to swing it over to you. Two opportunities that Viacom was presented by this upheaval, and two opportunities you're able to present out to your clients as well.
Yeah, I think we were in a somewhat of a unique situation where a year ago, we merged with CBS, Viacom, and CBS merged. So we were going through the process in January, February, and before we went home in March, going through the steps of that merger. and it wasn't, those steps were not complete by the time we went home. So things pushed back a little bit, but and it just added it added to the craziness of, you know, in the beginning there, March, April, and May, I would say. So, you know, we got through that, and, you know, so we have the streaming side of our business has just, as everybody, has exploded. And in terms of direct response, our digital ad sales team is led by Dave Futterman. Jen Carlson and I handle the linear side, but we're convergent. And I would say that some large opportunities came our way this year where we were able to, you know, work with a couple of clients and agencies in terms of larger sponsorship deals that we had not seen in the past that were going across linear and digital, and the budget growth on the digital side has been huge. It's been huge. Again, along with it's nice to see clients, you know, direct to consumer especially, and agencies adopting and changing and really changing fast on the model, and work, and not, you know, not ditching linear, not only going to streaming or you know, vice versa. It's really a shared win, I would say, across the board. So that's being able to offer some. We had a client in the VMAs, so being able to offer some of those opportunities that we had not in the past, and streaming made it, you know, really unlocking those budgets made it possible. So.
That's great. That's great. Brian.
Yeah. So when we think about opportunities, I like to think about it in terms of two different areas. So first and foremost, our responsibility as a leading media company is to do right by our viewers and our advertising partners. And then finally, I think the next opportunity was, I mentioned it before, but having the opportunity to let go of legacy ways of thinking. And so how did we accomplish both of these things? Okay, when we headed into pandemic, it was this initial panic around brands trying to get off of air. And so we took, I think, a very considerate approach in terms of how we approached our brands. And so what we found is that many of the brands actually were looking for new and innovative and timely messages to share with the viewing public and with their audiences. And so we leaned right into that. We helped brands with creative to actually take a more CSR approach in terms of partnering with us to get the message out there around staying safe at home and actually being a good corporate citizen. We also, when we think about breaking legacy, we use this as an opportunity to break those rules, right? Break rules around some of the ways in which we transact with brands. So one way that I think about is in this DTC space, we've created a full opportunity for brands to access the suite of our streaming inventory and really do it in a way that provides maximum flexibility for both us as the publisher and the brand. We have, during the midst of pandemic, of course, we've introduced a host of new products in the marketplace, one being, I think I mentioned it before, shoppable TV. So really thinking about a way in which to collapse that purchase funnel in real time with an audience, turning an audience from a passive viewing audience to actually an audience to actually make some sort of action. So what did we do? We removed fees against everything that we did shoppable while we were in the height of pandemic. And so what did that do? What was the end result? I think the end result was, for number one, DTC brands and brands, all brands for that matter, were able to collapse that funnel to drive action with the audience. And I think it actually helped to prove out the value of premium video. We so often spend a lot of time thinking about how to control for the value that's being siphoned away from us from social, right? And when you think about our social media companies and their ability to transact in real time with their audiences, and all of that value being assigned to those social media companies, when we know as consumers and marketers that consumers are being made aware of brands in premium video, and then they may be transacting in a social environment, and there's no reason why 100% of that value should be assigned to those platforms. So by introducing e-commerce, shoppable opportunities, conversion opportunities to the marketplace, we, number one, are able to prove the efficacy that we always knew was there. And number two, we're able to help transact with brands, specifically DTC brands that are digitally native, and they do enjoy the ability to see results almost in real time. So 1 year ago at this point, we weren't doing those things, and I think that COVID and this time gave us permission to break legacy, to keep brands on air, to keep our audiences engaged and happy, and drive business results for the brands that partner with us.
Yeah, it makes sense. At our Take 20 last week, I think someone mentioned or said the words, it's like we jammed 5 years of change and growth into 1 year because we had the opportunity to. I think that's what that's something that you definitely touched on here, Brian, in both your answers, so thank you. Mark, I'm going to turn to you with this next question, since you mentioned inventory before.
Sure.
Obviously, you had a lot of Q2 and Q3 last year were probably pretty crazy, lots of opportunity for DR and D2C. How did inventory and opportunity shift in Q4 and into Q1 of 2021? We'll start looking at the now and then start looking forward from here.
Sure, yeah, you really can't talk about 4Q without looking back a little bit to second quarter and third quarter, and the start of the pandemic, and then and going through May and June there into July. We worked just like plenty of media partners. We worked with our agencies, and we're flexible, and again, we were going day to day and just trying to if somebody needed off, we were getting them. We were working together, hand in hand, trying to get to the end of the road with them, and not wanting to. If somebody needed off, they were coming off, right? So we did lose a number of advertisers weren't pulled off, and they weren't running in those first again April, May-ish area. June they started trickling back in the third quarter, and then fourth quarter the floodgates, I would say, just opened. Specifically a number of categories: fitness category, telehealth, mobile banking, interest rates where they are. So a number of financial advertisers coming in that we have never seen before. So it really, fourth quarter, the amount of direct response budgets that were coming in across our networks and the industry were just absolutely. I think it was the strongest fourth quarter. I've been in sales 20 years. I think it's the strongest fourth quarter I've ever seen. And it's continuing right now in first quarter, right? Where inventory is tough to come by. Thankfully, we have 20 networks, so we'll find a home. We will find a home, and also obviously, that's just in relation to linear, but streaming as well. So we will find a home, as I think everybody on the screen will. But it's tight out there. It's definitely tight. I think I mentioned earlier that options on the national side, upfront options, were the lowest they've ever been, almost non-existent, and we haven't seen any advertisers on the national side giving time back or pulling budgets. So I think it's tight right now, and I believe that to be. I think for us, it's going to continue through the better part of the year.
Brian, I'm going to swing it over to you. Same question.
Yeah, I think simply put, it all ties back to our one platform business strategy, which we introduced at CES in 2020. And the real premise around that is being able to tie brands to the audiences that are meaningful for them. And when we think about direct to scale at NBC Universal, we've been able to lean into that strategy from a DTC standpoint. And so what does that mean from a D to S or direct to scale standpoint? We've been able to find audiences where they reside. So whether that audience is in a linear environment or a digital environment, we're no longer having conversations with brands about having to turn away their money because we can't fulfill against their business needs. The conversation is really about how do we find your audiences within NBC Universal, right? So that's where the conversation is going. And I think the toolkit that we have to work within, of course, includes linear and digital, but it also includes we're the exclusive sellers of Apple News. And so we have the ability to target and leverage impressions and opportunities there. We've created a global solution. We have this terrific AdSmart solution where we can find audiences at scale. So the conversation is not necessarily about inventory in any given week or month. The conversation is about finding audiences wherever they reside within our ecosystem and being able to provide opportunities for direct-to-consumer brands to transact against those audiences.
Gotcha. Christine, your thoughts on where we're at right now?
Yeah, from a linear TV perspective, we're always dealing with a finite amount of inventory. So pretty much along with what Mark and Brian have said, fourth quarter has been an extremely tight quarter as advertisers started to re-enter into the marketplace. But as Brian said, we don't turn away money. We think of alternatives and ways of really achieving each client's KPI in a very innovative and different way. We have opportunities to do things around our premiere programming. So we're out there. We have premiere programming, new programming every week. So there's always an opportunity to do something different and out of the box and spend the money wisely and in a way that it complements these brands and drives their businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Any of you feel comfortable trying to forecast out through the remaining quarters of 2021? Give us thoughts on where you see things going. I think, Mark, you kind of hinted at it, but anyone want to share some feedback on that?
I could continue. I mean, as I said, being from a linear TV perspective, having a finite amount of inventory, and also the financial institutions basically have come out and made their assumptions for the remainder of the year into 22 and 23. And basically what they're saying is they are seeing a recovery the second half of the year. And although it's not directly correlated, there is a sense of the fact that we are recovering. Consumer sentiment is actually on an upward trajectory, as are American businesses. So we find comfort in that to be able to kind of forecast where we're heading for the rest of the year. And again, with a finite amount of inventory, I could do that easily.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
comfortable.
I can add on to that from an NBCU standpoint. Yeah, being able to forecast. I wish I could. I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd have all the answers. But look, we've seen more acceleration in transformation in the last year than in the past decade. We know that consumer habits are shifting, and as an industry, we have to catch up with that shift. So I think it's really safe to say that we'll continue to see transformation at every level. We'll continue to see audiences shift and make their own schedules. We'll continue to see marketers and brands find new ways to reach those audiences in a meaningful way. And I think that the strategy that we've put in play at NBCU will give us the opportunities to help these brands succeed. So as it's less so about thinking about specific amounts of inventory or forecasting inventory for the upcoming weeks or quarters or months for us. It's more so about making sure that when the marketplace and viewers are shifting, that we are prepared and that we have thought about from a strategic level how we can shift along with them and not necessarily reacting in the moment. But the key for us and the teams that I lead and the greater organization is to be prepared and be ahead of the game for when those shifts happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just take the last year, Tom. You know, a year ago, Peacock was not around. It was discussed, but it hadn't launched yet. Paramount Plus is being, CBS All Access was around. It's being rebranded as Paramount Plus. I don't know if anybody saw the very funny commercial promo this weekend during the football game. You know, you have Discovery Plus. I believe they just launched. A lot of pluses, as Brian and I were talking about last week on these names. But you know, and why you know HBO Max, right? Why are these launching? To Brian's point, consumer habits are changing in you know a big way. But the screen is still you know the television set is 80% of our viewing streaming is streamed on in the living room, right, on TV glass. And you're seeing Pluto, right? You know that we Viacom bought, I think it's 2 years ago now, and that's being folded into along with Paramount Plus on the relaunch. But Tubi, like you have these number of you know advertising options, but free, right? But again, it comes back to content. Yellowstone, which was the #1 drama in cable last year, is on Peacock. A couple seasons you can get on Peacock, and actually we had one advertiser come to us for the new season of Yellowstone this summer. They saw it on Peacock. What's on HBO Max? South Park. We sold a bunch of those seasons to South Park to HBO Max. Emily in Paris was a #1 show, our top show on Netflix last few months. I think currently still, and that's a Paramount show. And season 2 is being made, and that's going to be launching on Paramount. So, you know, changing consumer behavior and habits. They're going to follow the content, and you know, content still rules across whatever screen, TV glass you're looking at in terms of, you know, again, you know, with all these launches that we've had in the past year. So I think it's an exciting time. And just like, you know, Brian and Christine said, our job is to find the proper audience for our advertisers and their brands and make it successful, you know, across the portfolio of whatever media company you work for.
Yep. Real quick, before we get into the next question, to the audience, again, if you missed it at the start, if you have a question for the panel, please send it in using your questions tab on your control panel, and we'll get to them at the end of the session here. Brian, I'm going to turn to you with this. What's the hottest ask right now from buyers and clients? What's the one thing that they're looking for, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, I'd say overall, the ask is for flexibility. And so as it relates to direct to scale and what we're doing from a performance and partnership standpoint within my organization, we think about flexibility and how that flexibility can relate to these brands buying within new places within NBC Universal. So streaming is tops on that list, and we've created opportunities for performance brands to access our streaming inventory with the greatest amount of flexibility that we can actually manage. So I think flexibility is the #1 ask when we're getting both longer and shorter term deals done with DTC brands.
Great. Christine, how about you?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. The flexibility being the main thing, but overall it's inventory flexibility, but also programming that aligns with a brand's messaging, mission. We're seeing a lot of that, and brainstorming with a lot of clients to come up with original programming ideas to align with some of these brands and the messages that they're trying to get across to their consumers.
Great. Mark, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little earlier. You know, completely concur on flexibility. I think that's also been a big reason why we've seen new advertisers come to through the DR, through the direct response door. But also we have a number of advertisers more so than ever before looking at, ways that we can think outside the box for them, sponsorship opportunities, bigger ticket, larger ticket items, things like that. And it's kind of, not a one size fits all, but definitely we've seen much more interest in those opportunities in the last 6 to 9 months than we had seen prior. So,
great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Touching now on something that Brian talked about in the preparation for this, and then Christine, you literally just touched on it. There's a lot of change in the narrative around direct response. We've got more advertisers who are focusing on maintaining brand KPIs while also driving response are now entering into this space. Brian, I'm going to ask you to maybe tackle this. How is that narrative changing, and what are you guys doing to address it?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Brands are certainly looking to understand how they can grow brand KPIs within that direct response model. And so we know the entire industry is changing, and so we're committed to changing alongside that. And so one of the core foundational elements of the NBCU direct to scale program is that we're committed to helping brands measure against their KPIs. So one of my biggest pet peeves working in this space for a long time is when brands or agencies say, I need to cancel, reduce rate, et cetera, because it didn't work. I want to know what it means to have worked before we have that conversation. And so from an agency standpoint, I really challenge my agency partners to make sure that they understand the KPIs of the brands that they are buying for, and conveying those KPIs ahead of time, so we can build something that is truly bespoke against those brands' needs. And so if a brand is looking for to drive brand awareness, right, in a DR, while also driving DR against DR metrics, we need to know that ahead of time, because we will be committed to building a level of measurement for these brands to measure brand awareness, and that while also collapsing the purchase funnel to drive against core direct response KPIs, which is usually surrounding some sort of response. So not only are we committed to building against and measuring against that attribution piece, again, to make sure that we are proving out efficacy versus our social competitors in that space, but we're also committed to creating products that actually help us get there. So we talked about shoppable TV and being able to collapse the purchase funnel, and NBCU checkout, which allows for consumers to transact against specific brands in an editorial environment for the most part. So not only are we committed to measuring against those KPIs, but we're committed to building products to help drive yield against those KPIs. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that when a brand runs with us, that it is ROI positive for them, so that we can continue to grow and build through them as we work through a test and learn environment within our performance space, and actually build to grow throughout the entire organization.
That's great. Christine, Mark, anything to add there from your perspectives?
I have the same pet peeve, Brian. It's good to know beforehand exactly what the client's goals are and intents are in order to make the campaign ROI positive for them and a pleasant experience on our network.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've definitely seen increased interest in our audience-based buying platform, Vantage, over the past year or two. I guess more so the past year. I think that just in terms of touching on, an advertiser's KPIs, that is something that our Vantage platform, much like other media partners, finding the right audience, and an advertiser may not and an agency may not be thinking that Nick at Night at midnight is the proper spot that they may never have bought that before. But anyway, the audience-based buying is our advantage, is our answer to maintaining and hitting a client's KPI, and much like they have over at NBC and whatnot. So that is what we we're seeing an increased interest in recently.
Great, yeah. Great. The next couple questions were pre-sourced from PDMI members, so just a couple of one's pretty specific, and the one we've already kind of been talking about, so I'll tweak it maybe a little bit. The first one, and I'm just going to toss these up, and whoever wants to jump in, go for it. After a period of growth, it seems like mid-form, such as 5-minute inventory, has stagnated some. What should marketers and buyers understand about the possibilities for this inventory going forward? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
I think the tight inventory, it doesn't lend itself to 5-minute spots when you're talking about how tight inventory is on the linear side. So yes, there was a time where we, 3, 4, 5-minute spots were running, more so, I guess, in late night or overnight on our networks, but there's been much less of a need or a home for that now due to how tight linear inventory has been.
I will say though, along with what Mark said, everything's worth a conversation. So I never say no. I always, keep the conversation open, and if it makes sense for both parties, then there's something to definitely talk about and execute on. So everything's worth a conversation.
Good to know.
Yeah, and I'd say really quickly, I like to look at it from a macro strategic level. So, we really want to understand what is the client trying to accomplish by running that 5-minute creative. And so, we're in the business of solving needs for those brands. And so we're here to help them find the best possible strategy to impact their business. So if that strategy requires that a story be told in a longer form environment, we're always here to help try to find solutions for those brands. And so maybe a 5-minute creative actually isn't the right vehicle to actually win against those KPIs. Maybe we need to look at building their brand into some of our programming or leveraging our ability to create custom content for these brands. We'll always be ready to solve solutions for these brands, but we want to make sure that that it integrates very nicely with our programming, and that it's something that audiences are going to be receptive to. And so, my team at NBC Universal, we will always have a conversation with a brand that's looking to tell a longer story and really understand their KPIs and come back to them with solutions. So I think the question is less so about whether we have 5-minute blocks of inventory to sell them, and it's much more about, do we have the capability and the acumen and the know-how to actually solve for their business solutions?
Right. So that's great. The second question that we sourced was, again, something we've been talking about, the expansion of the streaming space and affecting your particular company. What challenges has it created, and what opportunities are you currently executing on? I think, we've heard a lot of that already. Maybe if, and I know, Christine, you're not really involved in the streaming space with REELZ, but obviously I think it's probably creating challenges for you as well. So maybe each of the three of you could talk about, the biggest challenge you've faced from, the advent of streaming at this point.
Sure. I mean, REELZ is available in the streaming space. However, where we control our inventory is on the linear platform. And streaming was what, the Marsha of 2020. But what about Jan, right? So although streaming usage continues to grow, linear TV remains the biggest piece of the pie, of the viewing pie, I should say. And Nielsen supports this. And what we've also found is that linear TV is really drives businesses forward. We're able to reach the masses for a lot of these brands. You know, in that sense, REELZ is really committed to producing content for our advertisers, for our viewers, you know, continuing to do that for our brands and giving them a platform to drive their business forward.
Mm-hmm. Guys, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, Sully mentioned Peacock earlier, and I think the biggest challenge with Peacock is if you think about when it was launched. You know, we did not ever expect to launch Peacock during a global health crisis, but we gave our viewers and partners what they needed during this time to actually remain entertained. And so it was a challenge, but in a lot of respects, it was a blessing for many of our viewers that were safe at home. And then we think about how we've turned that challenge into an incredible opportunity. Since launching Peacock across the country, we've gained 26 million signups and counting. So incredible progress for that platform, which has been a platform that is very welcoming to DTC brands and will continue to provide the best and most engaging content to our viewers. But the challenge is certainly around the time that we launched.
Absolutely.
I think streaming presents not everything that Christina and Brian just said, but also you know, from a data perspective, it is, you know, challenging for some of the, or has been challenging for some of these brands. Certainly, a lot more have jumped in and tested it out during the last year. But you know, prior to that, from the data perspective, it can be tough on the brands and these agencies, certain agencies who haven't jumped in maybe all the way. And I think a data solve. There's so many. You know, I'm certainly not even close to an expert from a data perspective, but that seems to be a huge, you know, point of contention moving forward with a number of these brands in terms of jumping into streaming, maybe more so. And I think that every day it's getting better, and every day more and more are trying it out and having success. And it's just interesting that from a data perspective, that seems to be the last couple of years that I hear the biggest gripe on the other side of how do we measure it. So
yeah. I think we got time for one more here to wedge in before we go to the audience questions. We got about 4 questions from the audience to go through. So one last one from me, from our list. If you had to select the biggest challenge facing you and your sales team going forward, what would it be? Christine, I'll let you go first on this last one.
Considering the year we're coming off of, I would say keeping everyone motivated. I mean, there's so much happening outside of us with the virus impacting our day-to-day lives. It's really top of mind that we stay motivated, we keep moving forward. And you know, within our own organization, I know we make efforts as far as providing educational sources for our employees, and you know, daily Zoom calls just to make sure that everyone feels connected and are connected. So it's really the motivation of our employees as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say from my perspective, both from a personal and professional perspective, you know, this has been a great year filled with just like all of these great opportunities. But the 2 areas that come to mind are, number one, diversifying the entire industry's workforce as we come together on various initiatives so that we can lift each other up. And then the next one is making sure that from a business perspective that we are focused on reimagining and changing how we approach the marketplace, specifically from a direct-to-consumer standpoint, and giving them all of the opportunities to win against their KPIs. But if we think about the change that this industry is attempting to undertake from a diversity standpoint, it is of paramount importance that this business, when we leave this business, that we leave this business a much more diverse place than when we got here. And for anybody who knows me, knows that I've believed in this since day one, working in this business at Lifetime alongside Sully, and I think Christine, you might have just left Lifetime, so we're all Lifetime alumni. But from a Comcast NBCU perspective, I'm just thrilled at the amount of change that we've committed to. As a matter of fact, we've committed $100 million towards social justice and equality within the entire country, across the landscape, including 75 million in cash and 25 million in kind media. So we are certainly putting our money where our mouth is. And then it's my personal challenge to all of us on this panel, and for those who are listening and watching along, is that, you know, creating more inclusive organizations isn't just about hiring, and it's not just the responsibility of HR to make these D&I changes a reality. The ultimate goal is for transformation, and we all have to be invested in that transformation to create a more inclusive culture. So that's my challenge in business. I certainly think the other things in terms of being able to change how we provide everything from measurement to attribution is going to happen, but I think we need to be intentional about how we look at the complexion of our teams.
Thanks, Brian.
It's amazing to see on the media side, you know, both in front of the camera, behind the camera, from a corporate perspective, you know, from a the diversity initiatives that are you know, taking hold, and really change seems to finally you know, been happening recently and going to continue to happen moving forward. It's really refreshing and amazing to see. So in terms of what was the most difficult, what was the initial question?
The biggest challenge you and your sales team face?
You know, I think it's going to be, it's definitely going to be interesting when we do get back to whatever that new normal is. I look forward to walking back in the office, but I also a little nervous about that. It's going to be not from necessarily from a health perspective. It's just going to be a little strange, at least initially. I believe Brian, NBC, you guys announced early on that I believe like over the summer you might have announced. Did you guys announce that you're going to have like a more open floor plan, and was it going to be no offices, and you're going to kind of come in and you know, you're not expected to be in the office essentially?
Yeah, I don't know if we made that type of announcement, but I do know is that the company has been incredible in terms of flexibility and accounting for the needs of employees. I mean, we have not been in the office over the summer, but there are certain people that actually need to be in the office, not necessarily because of business needs, but because they live in a one-bedroom apartment with 6 kids, right? So the company has done an incredible job of making sure that our teams are accommodated.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real interesting to see what across the board what that means 6 months from now or 9 months, whatever, you know, whatever the time frame, and kind of nervous excitement about it, I guess, is what I.
It's going to be interesting. It's like, you know, it's going to be interesting. The back in the office is going to be interesting to go on the first trade show. It's going to be interesting on the first client trip. You know, the whole thing. You know, we'll all remember how to do it, but it's going to take a minute.
It was second nature before, and then it's like, yeah, all of a sudden when it's just.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into some of these questions from the audience. And again, whoever wants to go for it, go for it. This first one might be better directed toward Christine, but if someone else wants to jump in, go ahead. What steps are you guys taking to ensure that you have more linear inventory to sell in future quarters with the fall in linear impressions?
Can you just repeat that again?
Yeah, what steps are you groups taking to ensure that you have more linear inventory to sell in the future as linear impressions are falling? I'll reword it to make it a little clearer.
No worries. It all comes down for us to our inventory management. So we are definitely on top of what, how to move our business forward by managing our inventory and our pricing. And as the new upfront takes place, we'll be monitoring that very closely and accepting and working forward with deals that make financial sense for us.
Mm-hmm. Mark, Brian, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd go. I'd say that from it, I talked about it for much of this conversation around being able to find audiences. So the commitment that we have made and will continue to live by is being able to find the correct audiences for brands across all of our linear and streaming inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a difficult question, right? I mean, we all would love, it's a lot easier to say yes than it is to say no in terms of inventory, right? And it's been a difficult quarter and a half here on inventory, but for us, again, we have 20 networks. We just launched a broadcast digital network called Fave TV back in mid-December. That's in 28 million homes at the moment. It's going to be rated in May, and going to be by the summer should be, I think, above 40. So that's one option that we're bringing to the table this year, and it's potential. It's across all the CBS broadcast owned and operated stations, and we're looking at that potentially to launch if this is successful, which it has been so far. There could be more of those in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Great. Next audience question. When we think about 2021, what do you think will separate the brands that will see success versus those that will struggle or stay stagnant in terms of return on ad spend?
I'd say, success is going to hinge on having clearly defined KPIs and finding the audiences that we can transact on to help you hit those KPIs. I also think that evolving the way that we measure as an industry is going to be crucial to driving success and winning overall. So, we've created these solutions to help brands more accurately measure the power of premium video. And I encourage agency partners and brands alike to work with us and to challenge us to find solutions to find to hit their return on ad spend, make that a positive story for them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say knowing their KPIs and exactly. Knowing their KPIs and being able to communicate that with us so that we could work together with them to achieve their business goals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at all the options out there nowadays as opposed to 5-10 years ago. There's so many more options. But as Christine and Brian have touched on a number of times during this call, it's the advertiser at its heart has to know what it's trying to achieve and what they're trying to achieve, and KPIs are paramount. And I think that is really, it sounds hokey, but that's what it all comes down to.
And I do think it's important that they work with their agencies or with their respective networks that have attribution models to work very closely with them. And the key thing is communicating and heading in the right direction and not going in blindly and not knowing what they're doing. That's a crash and burn scenario.
Right. That's great. We'll try to wedge one more in here, and I think it's it's something that has been talked about repeatedly in all of your answers, but just consider it from this perspective now, and I'll give you a chance for a last word, really. With inventory being so tight in Q1 and categories like hospitality, travel, and restaurants most likely making a big comeback in the second half of the year, what would you recommend for D2C and DR marketers to ensure they get their needed airtime? Again, I think we've talked about around this a lot, but I think this really tees everyone up for a last word here. So go ahead, Mark, you want to go first? Well, we lost you. We lost your audio, Mark.
We lost your sound.
Sorry, you got me?
Yeah, you're
Sorry,
right.
I just kind of touched on it a second ago, but I mean, there are a number of options out there, more so than there ever have been, for advertisers. And I think it's knowing, reviewing all the options on the table that the media companies, media partners are providing. If you don't get stuck in, try not to get stuck into an old habit and branch out. And now's the time to test different areas and see what works, again, because there are so many options out there. And yes, is linear inventory tight? It is tight, and maybe it's time to branch it out to other networks or other streaming or audience-based buying model, or maybe there's a creative change that is needed. So I think it's reviewing, and that's our job, right? To come to the table with options and find the right fit, be it a 30-second spot, a 5-minute spot, an infomercial, whatever it may be. Trying to find the right home for you, the right audience. Comes down to the audience for your advertising.
Yeah, simply put, for me, I encourage, and yes, I do think that the hospitality and travel industry is going to come back strong towards the second half of 2021. And I encourage brands to bring us and my team your challenges and the problems that you're looking to solve for, and put the challenge on us, and we will come back with solutions that can win against your KPIs and help you get to where you need to be. So I'm not so much worried about not having solutions for brands. What I would encourage brands to do is to bring us those challenges and let us come back to something that's really compelling and thought-provoking.
Christine.
I would say this year is the year of innovation, and as we talk about limited inventory, I think as a whole we need to start thinking differently. We need to start thinking about tying brands to their audiences, to the programming, to the content. Really get creative, and not so much be focused on the spots and dots, but maybe a big sponsorship, something that you could tie your brand to and your messaging to that makes sense and is targeting the audience you need. So we need to break out of the whole inventory conversation.
Great. Well, hey, thank you to all three of you. Tremendous work. We appreciate it. We also want to say thank you to the PDMI Workshop Council, which is tasked with creating these webinars to educate the industry. This is the 7th one-hour session the group's created in the past 7 months, as all of us have kind of had to change what we do. If you're a PDMI member and would like to get involved, reach out to me directly to share interest in the Workshop Council or any of our councils today. Your next opportunity to attend a PDMI event live online is our next episode of Take 20, which is our 20-minute webinar series created by our Brand Response Council. Both Brian and Mark are part of the Brand Response Council, and that'll air live next Wednesday, February 3rd at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Please visit thepdmi.com/take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend. Our next winter seminar series event, which will be titled Are Your Business Payments Safe?, will take place on Wednesday, February 24th. That was just decided today. With speakers announced soon. Keep an eye on your email and the PDMI's website for more info. And finally, our upcoming 2-day live webinar extravaganza, PDMI East Virtual, is slated for March 9th and 10th. For more information and to register today for the 8 one-hour sessions over 2 days, you can visit thepdmi.com/PDMI-East now. So thank you again to Brian, to Christine, to Mark, and to each of you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and stay well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.